Everybody has that one game series or franchise that you will support and defend until the end of time. For better or for worse, you are hooked for life. Some people have to buy every version of Call of Duty, others pour hundreds of dollars each year into the next edition of Madden, 2K, or FIFA. But for many others, myself included, that video game empire is Pokémon. And I could sit here and read off a bunch of facts about how it's the highest grossing video game franchise of all time. How a bunch of losers are slowly draining people of all their happiness by scalping each Pokemon card product in a 50-mile radius, the popularity of the plushes, or about how Pocket TCG has taken over a part of my brain that needs to see a shiny card with cool art. But that's all stuff you've seen recently on social media, so I'm not going to talk about that. What I do want to talk about today is the video game side of things, with a slight focus on the recent Pokémon Presents. Now let me say first that I am a Nintendo lifer. I am a huge consumer of many of their video game franchises. I had a Game Boy Advance, DS, Wii before I bought any other gaming console. I grew up with Nintendo and I wouldn't have it any other way. I still remember booting up Pokemon Sapphire for the first time on my Game Boy, beating the champion with my Swampert, Kyogre, Torkoal, Swalot, and whatever else I had on my team at the time. From that moment forward, I was hooked. And I've played a mainline series game from each generation since they've been released, along with a vast collection of side games as well. I am often the most positive and optimistic in my circle about Pokemon games. I defend this series a lot, and I would like to think that I am Mr. Pokemon's strongest soldier. Needless to say, I know ball when it comes to Pokemon. So while I'm still excited about the future of Pokemon games for sure, I guess I'm concerned, if that's the right word, about the direction after the most recent Pokemon Presents, and really after the Scarlet and Violet DLC were released. But let's start off with the Presents. Pokemon announced a lot of updates to their mobile game titles, all of which are fine. They have their own unique audiences and enjoyers, and I have no problem with that. Like I said, I love Pocket, so the new set was exciting to see. They announced new episodes for Concierge, an anime series, the next generation of sorts for Pokemon cards with Mega Evolution, all good news. We then got our first look at something very cool, that being Pokemon Champions, essentially a battle simulator in the VGC style of things. And it's on the Switch and your phone. And that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to learning more stuff about it, even if just for a second there, they did make me think that we were getting a collection of the old games, but what are you gonna do? And then we got the biggest news of the day, Pokemon Legends ZA. We got our first look at the new games where we saw the main protagonist, new characters, old faces returning, wild Pokemon roaming the streets in new wild zones, and most importantly for some, the new starters. We also got to see a new battle system, but more on that a little bit later. Overall, we learned a lot about Legends ZA, which is good. And before I give my thoughts on the Presents and the state of Pokemon as a whole, I'm going to dive in real quickly onto what I really liked about Legends ZA and some of the stuff I wasn't super excited about. First off, I really like the starters for this game. I know that's not a popular opinion, but Totodile, Tepig, and Chikorita are not exactly the most popular starters out there, but that's why they're great choices. Whichever one you end up picking, you're going to develop more of a liking to and be a supporter of. There are kids out there that have never seen these goofy little guys before and do not care about the internet's opinion on them, and they'll pick one of them to be their first starter Pokemon ever. And that right there is how you make people care about Pokemon that have fallen a bit short popularity-wise. You give people a reason to care. I'm also pretty certain that all of these three will end up with a Mega Evolution in this game, which is fantastic. I mean, the most beloved generational mechanic, giving an upgrade to 3 starters that could definitely use it. Well done. Now, something I'm not too crazy about one way or the other is the graphics of this game and just how it looks in general. I was thinking about it the other day and came to the realization that if Pokemon Scarlet and Violet ran well without any lag, had no weird glitches, and maybe looked a little bit better, they would probably be considered top 3 games in many people's minds. That is how strongly I believe in everything else about that game. So the fact that Pokemon Legends EA looks slightly better than Scarlet and Violet so far is okay, I guess. What really matters is the game's performance. Is the game gonna freeze because of lag? Am I going to be looking in the void during battles or because I'm in the corner of a building? Is the map even going to load in entirely when I'm looking down the street? The last really big point of emphasis I have right now is the battling system, and I'll just come right out and say it. At first glance, I'm not the biggest fan. The running around to dodge attacks seems easily exploitable to me with the looks that we got. I mean, what's to stop me from running around the whole time? And no real turn-based combat is just not really what I wanted to see. I understand how the dodging and move recharging makes it more like the anime, but it just feels a little unnatural to me. I like Pokemon trying new things. I wasn't a huge fan at first of the Pokemon Legends ZA battle system, but after a while I barely even noticed it, so I could end up eating my words just as easily. Overall, Legends ZA being confined to one city, albeit a big one, just makes it feel a little bit limited. And to be honest, I haven't exactly gotten that spark of excitement that I usually do, but I hope I do. Now, as it pertains to the Pokemon Presents as a whole, it all fell just a bit short for me. The way they sped through all the mobile games made me think we were about to get bombshell after bombshell of big announcements. And what we got out of Pokemon Champions was what we expected. We expected the mobile game updates, expected news on Legends ZA, and that's what we got. And while Pokemon Champions is cool, as of right now it is just a battling simulator. I'm not saying I expected us to get blown away with new releases left and right, but I was kind of expecting one more big surprise, whether that be a remake or collection or just something else. And I know this is easy for me to say from a fan standpoint, but literally if you just take Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, revamp the graphics and style just like Explorers DX, you tune up the music to make it sound a little bit more polished, and throw that in the Presents, that game and story have a strong enough community and following that if you put that in the Presents, the entire vibe of the presentation shifts massively. I feel like all we needed was that one big surprise and we just didn't get it. And that's not the end of the world by any means, but it does beg the question, just what is Pokemon doing right now? Since Scarlet and Violet's DLC dropped, we basically have gotten radio silence on anything not named Legends ZA, and even then it took until now to really get any kind of look at that. We know Pokemon has different teams to work on different games. Teams were working on Sword and Shield, Legends Arceus, and maybe Scarlet and Violet at the same time. Right now all we know about for sure is Legends ZA. I think I can speak for the whole community here when I say that we don't want something to be released when it's not ready, but it would be nice to know what's kind of being worked on. If I had seen Gen 5 remakes releasing in 2026 or 2027, I would still look at that and be like, wow, that's a while away, but I'm still super excited. And that's probably just wishful thinking, but not too far out of the stratosphere, I'd like to think. The release of the Switch 2 is obviously a huge variable here that impacts things massively. It could be that the lack of Pokemon content is due to the fact that they're just making it for a console that hasn't even been released yet. Everyone has been clamoring for a collection of older games to be ported to the Switch, and that would be awesome. But next year is Pokemon's 30th anniversary. It makes a lot more sense for something like that to be released then, and I really do think that's a strong possibility. The future is bright, even if the present is a little bit murkier. The 10th generation of Pokemon games, when they are released, feel like they almost have to be groundbreaking. I'm expecting Pokemon to swing for the fences with these games, and I'm really excited for when that time comes. Given it's going to release on a more powerful console in the Switch 2, I'm expecting limits to be surpassed in certain ways. One thing I would hope for is that all Pokemon are available in the game one way or another. I mean, it'll probably happen in the DLC for Legendaries and Mythicals and all that at least, but I'd hope they put as many normal Pokemon in the base game as they can. A second thing I think would be pretty interesting is if they brought back the ability to go to a second region in the game. Kind of in the same way that you're eventually able to go to Kanto in the Johto games. Chances are if they did this, it would be a post-game area again, which would be fine. As long as there's a concrete story to follow, it would be great. This would also help a lot with distributing all the Pokemon in the Pokédex as well. And while it's great that we can get legendaries from other regions of the game, having them in raids or dens is a bit underwhelming. Just have some locked off areas on the map. Whack Articuno at the back of a frozen forest. Throw a shrine in the middle of a jungle for Celebi that you can get through an item from beating a gym leader in a rematch. Lock Mewtwo in an old laboratory in a place you've already been, but were never able to get into the specific room. We don't need the whole distortion world back, as cool as that would be, but just giving some mystique back to these literal legendary beings I think would go a long way. A third thing I think would be pretty cool is bring back as many characters from old games as possible. Bring back old rivals, gym leaders, Elite Four members as people either in the main story, different side quests, or attached to legendary storylines. Maybe even create a massive tournament, like World Cup style, or even Masters 8 like the anime if they want to go that route. It just feels like this game should be partly a celebration of the whole series. I mean, reaching 10 mainline series game is a big deal. Double digits is crazy. And some last couple rapid fire thoughts. I liked how there were towns up on the mountains in Scarlet and Violet, and I think having its city or town underwater could be sick. You could have one be in a cave. Just giving the cities some personality would be really cool. I don't know if I want Mega Evolution in this game or not. I think I'd rather them focus on new evolutions for existing Pokemon and regional forms with whatever brand new regional decks we get. Also, please, let's not do craftable TMs again. It's just a lot easier and takes a lot of the headache out when they're just reusable, please. But that's all I can really think of right now. If you do want me to go more in depth, maybe make another video about this, sure, just let me know. For what it's worth, I do have 3 genie wishes for Pokemon games in the future. Going in order, number 1 just has to be Gen 5 remakes. Gen 5 was already near and dear to my heart just because of how good the games are, but if you know anything about this channel's origins, I mean, look at the videos page, you'll understand. I mean, you'll understand why I need this. Soul Silver and Heart Gold had their flaws, but were great remakes. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were amazing, BDSP were okay, but they were a faithful remake on flawed games, but didn't fix the flaws. They should have just remade Platinum, but what are you gonna do? Each remake has really changed the art style of the game, and I think that a 2D HD style game, kind of in the same vein as like Octopath Traveler, I think that would be perfect for these games. It doesn't take away from the cool art style that we had where it was just pushing the limits of what the DS had, but it also still improves it to a certain point. My second wish would be for those aforementioned Explorers of Sky remakes. Please let that happen, it would be fantastic. And third, that collection of old games that we all seem to be waiting for, just, you know, with the ability to battle and trade through the internet. I don't want to mess with any link cables on my Switch, please. Fingers crossed for those. You know, I tried keeping this video unbiased, I guess, in the sense of what I liked and what I didn't like, so hopefully I accomplished that goal. As much of a pipe dream as it is, to be able to be recognized by the Pokemon Company is definitely a dream of mine for sure. I mean, they brought me a lot of joy. This channel was built on Pokemon to begin with, and I hope they continue to do so for others for years to come. If you've gotten this far in the video, thank you so much for listening to me rant and rave about something that I'm passionate about. It means a lot. If you enjoyed, leaving a like and subscribing helps me out a ton. I mean, let me know if you guys enjoy these style of videos of me just yapping. You know, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about Pokemon The Presents. Should I start a playthrough soon? I mean, it might be about time that we got back on that. I look forward to hearing everything that you guys have to say. But let's wrap this one up. Stay tuned for more content next week. And until next time, peeps, this is Papa Jack saying adios.